PhpStorm 2021.1 is now available. In this video, we'll take a quick look at some of its most exciting features. The previous major version, PhpStorm 2020.3, featured a widget displaying the PHP language level of the current project. If you set the PHP version in composer.json and enabled setting synchronization, the widget would appear grayed out. Your only option then was to manually modify the version constraint in composer.json. In PhpStorm 2021.1, you can use this widget to disable synchronization with composer.json and then set the desired language level without affecting the file. This way, you can quickly view how compatible your codebase is with a newer PHP version before you actually switch to it. If you go to the preferences, notice that the PHP-related settings are now displayed on the top level. Earlier, you needed to locate them under Languages and Frameworks. Many content management systems and frameworks allow you to specify a database table prefix to separate tables between different apps. In previous versions, if you used a prefix marker in an injected SQL query, PhpStorm could not provide proper database integration. With PhpStorm 2021.1, you can specify prefixes in the .phpstorm.meta.php file. Add the SQL, injection, sub-st-map directive and provide the pattern and replacement pairs. The values will be substituted on the fly, and PhpStorm will link SQL queries to data sources and provide full coding assistance. When working with HTML files, you can now click the PhpStorm logo in the web browsers list to preview the file in the built-in browser. Any changes made to an HTML file or the linked CSS and JavaScript files will be immediately saved, and the preview will be reloaded automatically. You can configure the list of browsers under Preferences, Tools, Web Browsers. Preview is available for PHP files too. On the PHP Preferences page, make sure you have a local interpreter configured and you're good to go. Open a file and click the PhpStorm logo to instantly preview it. In previous versions, PhpStorm detected and automatically injected language in string literals passed as arguments. For example, if you passed a pattern string to preg functions directly, it was highlighted as a regular expression. But if you passed a variable, its value would not be highlighted. PhpStorm 2021.1 will analyze how your variables are used and will inject a language reference automatically. In earlier versions of PhpStorm, when you renamed a variable, all of its occurrences were considered, both inside and outside of loops or catch blocks. PhpStorm would then rename the variable everywhere throughout the scope. The reason for this is that in PHP, these variables do not have an isolated scope. PhpStorm 2021.1 introduces a synthetic scope for these blocks, and the rename refactoring can include the variables either only from this scope or from the entire visible scope. When working with several files, you can split the editor by dragging a tab to the side of the window. In 2021.1, you can also double-click on the current tab to maximize the area of the editor. To restore it to the original size, simply double-click the tab again. With each release, PhpStorm can detect even more inconsistencies in your code and offer you handy context actions to deal with them. In PHP, you can define variables for the key and value in a for each loop. These variables don't have a separate scope, so PhpStorm will highlight every instance where they can clash with the names of other variables or parameters and override their values. If a Boolean expression contains true or false literals, PhpStorm will now offer you quick fixes to simplify it and increase code readability. If you use the strict comparison operator, the result will always be false if the operand's types don't match. PhpStorm will highlight such usages, as they can potentially be a source of bugs. Additionally, PhpStorm will take into account all the type-inferred information and will help you find issues in less obvious cases. Another new inspection highlights HTTP protocol usages in strings, and it lets you either instantly switch to HTTPS or ignore the URL. The list of all ignored URLs and other settings for this inspection is available under Preferences, Editor, Inspections, Security, Link with Unencrypted Protocol. Another new quick fix lets you change a condition to the opposite and make the necessary code adjustments to preserve the logic. If you are a fan of the early return practice, this action will be very useful as it helps you refactor your code. In this release, when analyzing your code, PhpStorm will consider extensions specified in both the require and suggest sections of composer.json. When an extension is registered in composer.json as suggested, but it is not checked via extension loaded or function exists, PhpStorm will highlight the usage and let you move the extension to the require section. Before PHP 8.0, it was common to add a variable assignment in a function call to mimic the actual name of a parameter. Starting with PHP 8.0, this hinting variable can be replaced with a named argument, and PhpStorm provides a quick fix for that. Checks using the isSet function are only effective for arrays and variables. In all other cases, it makes more sense to use null checks instead, so you can use the provided quick fix to add them. PhpStorm will also highlight ternary expressions using isSet and let you switch to simpler expressions using the null coalescing operator. PhpStorm will now detect if or else blocks that contain duplicate code and offer quick fixes for extracting the common parts, removing unneeded branches, or merging conditions together. Consider the following private method in a class. It is called another methods, but the result is neither assigned nor reused in any way. For such methods, it may make sense to declare their return type void explicitly to make the code clearer. In this release, you can run code inspections with the selected profile before committing your changes. In the Commit Tool window, click the gear icon, select the Analyze Code checkbox, click Configure, and then choose the desired profile. You can customize your profiles in Preferences, Editor, Inspections. When creating a commit message, PhpStorm will take into account a git commit template if it is specified in the commit.template option of your Git configuration. The pull requests workflow received several improvements too. To create a new pull request, go to Git, GitHub, create pull request, and provide the details in the new pull request tool window. Here, you can see the included commits and changed files, and review the changes in the Differences viewer. On the Info tab, select the head repository and its branch, specify the request's title and description, appoint reviewers and assignees, and add descriptive labels. When ready, you can create the pull request right away or submit it as a draft to indicate that the proposed change is a work in progress. The built-in HTTP client will now let you quickly define the SSL settings. Click Add Environment File, select Private, and add the SSL configuration node. Inside, provide the paths to your certificate and key files. To enable the server certificate verification by a client, use the Verify Host Certificate option. And if your client certificate is protected by a password, set the Has Certificate Passphrase option to true, and then click the icon in the gutter to provide the password. Now let's run a request and look at the received response. Here, you can now switch the viewing mode between text, JSON, HTML, or XML and enable line numbers. There's also a new button to quickly copy the response body to the clipboard. Let's do just that, and then create a new JSON scratch file to take a look at another new feature, which is JSONPath support. With JSONPath, you can find different code elements in a JSON document. In the main menu, go to Edit, Find, Evaluate JSONPath Expression, and provide your query in the dedicated tool window. You can also choose how to display your query output, either as a value or a path to the desired data. PhpStorm now recognizes the new line delimited JSON lines format, where each new line is a JSON object. You can configure the file types for this new format in Preferences, Editor, File Types. This sums up the major new features in PhpStorm 2021.1, but there are even more. Learn more on our blog at blog.jetbrains.com/phpstorm and download the new version from jetbrains.com/phpstorm. Thanks for watching.